kind of shooting from the hip on this episode, but
of sorts, right? Because we already know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we know what we're talking about.
We talk about hip hop, man. Hip hop type stuff.
Yeah, we've been doing all this fitness stuff, so we wanted to bring it back because hip hop is definitely a part of the Grown Man Cipher, and
it's a part of who we are, man.
Yeah,
you know
so it's going to be a continual theme, for what we do.
Most definitely, man.
So yeah, so you want to let them know the way we're going to approach this conversation, because I think it's a interesting conversation. I mean, honestly, I don't hear people really get into it that often.
No, because my man Tamal, shout out to my man Tamal from Carrying the Culture, he made a point about this, and so did Skills. Man, a lot of people are afraid to just be honest, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess it's like a spillover of the PC stuff, right? It's like a lot of times people don't want to be like, yo, I don't like this, you know what I'm saying? Or I prefer this, or I didn't like that LP or something like that. It's almost like people are afraid, to be honest, because they feel like being honest is dissing. And it's not dissing, it's just, dissing is like, yo, this dude's a fool, he's an idiot, his music sucks. Or dissing is like, yo, he's the wackest rapper ever, right? But it's just be like, I just don't really feel his stuff. That's one thing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for you, But we're gonna basically talk about, just, I don't know, like I'm not gonna say the current state of hip hop, but we're gonna talk about the fact that I don't want to say it's even two camps. It's just two things.
Nah, it's not.
That's kind of right. The whole trap boom bap thing, right? I mean, like, it's just the differences and how we see it and how it's debated in some circles, and just it's cyclical, all these other things. So it was Luke's idea, so I was thinking something different. I'm like, man, let's do this.
Because trap beats, 808 in beats that's become like a real standard. You don't hear the break beat as much as you used to. You know what I mean? So I think it's just the trap and the boom bap sound. Just the fact that, we were talking about how when Griselda came out, and I don't know,
pivotal.
I felt like that changed something.
As a pivotal moment.
I thought it was a pivotal moment where people were like, oh, we don't have to do this certain style of production, because even Griselda was out there, bro. Those beats were hella slowed down. You know what I mean? They were just like grimy.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It wasn't like some old school boom bap, like 90 BPM. Like,
they were kind of doing their own version of boom bap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't 808, you know what I mean? But it got it got major attention, you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, dude.
It
major
rocks
attention,
hip-hop,
yeah.
Bro. It rocks hip-hop.
Bro, let's just, we're going to do a quick segue about Griselda, because there's a couple points that need to be made about just how pivotal that it was.
First off, maybe we let them know who Griselda is, just for some people that aren't. If you don't know,
go ahead, let them know.
So you got West Side Gun, Benny the Butcher, and you got Conway the Machine.
And don't forget their in-house producer, my man Derringer.
Yeah, and then they're also working with the Alchemists a lot too.
Yeah, yep. Yep, that's true.
Yeah, so these are dudes that have been around for a minute. Conway's like 40-some years old. Benny's like 35, 36. And I think West Side Gun's like almost 40
about
or
the same
so. About the same, somewhere in between there. Yeah. So, these dudes have been doing it for a minute, and then they came out with this Griselda album, and I think it just changed stuff too. I watched the reaction video where they were in there playing it for Jay-Z.
Dude, everybody knows.
And just watching him just like react to it, bro.
Everybody knows. Yeah. Everybody knows that Griselda is just mega dope. I'm gonna touch upon one more thing. Griselda is an example of what's going on right now. You've got a lot of split in the camp of hip hop in a sense, or a split of sorts, where it's like, I like trap, I like boom bap, or even a lot of cats like ourselves who are a little bit our age and older, who were like, they see a lot of the trap and all that stuff coming out, and what people call mumble rap. I don't call it that. I call it, it's whatever it is. I don't know what you would call it, but it's definitely a rapid departure from boom bap. But a lot of people basically, it's just kind of like a split. But Griselda was kind of like, it was like a breath of fresh air in this entire situation, because they just dropped a lot of stuff that people just couldn't help but feel. They couldn't help but feel, man. And even a lot of the vets, like Jay-Z, like he just mentioned, Jay-Z, Ghost and Ray, you know what I'm saying? Everybody, kind of have acknowledged that these guys are kind of like the second coming. And they had
even Drake shouted him out big time in an interview, and
who couldn't?
So who couldn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
they're like, that good.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something?
No, that was pretty much it.
But check it out real quick. People don't know this, and West Side Gun talked about this. Did you know about this? You probably do, but they had a deal where I guess they had like I don't know if it was like an award show or a meeting or a party or get together, whatever. But basically, a lot of the vets basically looked at Griselda and were like, okay, we're handing the torch over. It was like Ghost and Ray, Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of all the people. It was a multitude of dudes basically.
So this is a minute ago because you're talking Prodigy.
Yeah. He wasn't dead when it happened quite yet. He wasn't. Well, actually, and he's done some joints with them. But yeah, man, I mean, everybody was like, "Hey, we're handing the torch over to you." So these guys, they hit the scene and they just, man, again, it was just a ridiculously pivotal shift in what people had known up to that point. But it was also, like Luke said, they just they brought everything back.
Mm-hmm.
But then they self-styled it, and then they took and made Buffalo like a 6th borough. These guys were like, nobody was hearing us, and now we're here, and you're gonna hear us. And everyone's like, yes, we do hear you.
Yeah.
You know. So what are you about to say, bro?
Yeah, I mean, they signed to Shady, right? Because that Griselda album came out on Shady.
It did.
You know what I mean? And then I think they put out a couple solo albums each, but then they have their own thing, and it's
all
just
heat
been,
too.
Yeah. Bro, but it's just, and now it's just been taken off, and that, you've seen them take advantage of this opportunity too. I mean, like West Side Gun's got that Buffalo Kid store.
Indeed.
That's just killing it. I mean, he's
The
killing the
hats.
merch and the art, you know what I mean?
Fashion, that's a fashion, what do they call it? Fashion, it's his deal. Because he's like a big fashion dude too, but he's got that, it's called, I can't remember. Maybe I'll remember it later, but yeah, he's got fashion, he's got the hats, with that one hat that they make in Buffalo. It's like the famous sports hats.
Mm-hmm.
They basically have coined, an avenue for him to basically do his thing with Fashion Rebels.
Okay.
Yeah, Fashion Rebels is West Side Gun's thing. They've coined him an avenue to be like, okay, this is yours right here. Since you're from Buffalo, like they are, so he's repping the home. He's doing his thing. Hella prolific from a creation and an art standpoint, to say the least.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but then just to talk about Griselda, even to the point of them paving the way again, for people to be like, oh yeah, you don't have to do things this way. And I feel like,
Totally.
Obviously, like, talk about the Busta Rhymes album that didn't drop too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really curious about the production on that, because Busta Rhymes' production early on, he was working with like Timbaland a lot back in the day, right?
Yeah, it was a combination.
It was a combination. But like the beats, I wouldn't call trap or boom bap necessarily back then. It was like his own thing, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Early, Busta Rhymes obviously would be considered boom bap, like.
Absolutely.
So he's been, so I really didn't know what to expect from his beats, right? Because you're thinking just someone try to come at it and be like, hey, these trap beats.
Yeah, because this is what's popping right now.
Is it all 808?
Yeah.
I didn't know. And it wasn't, bro. The production I thought was like well spread out. It sounded dope. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So like just the fact that him coming out, and that was after Griselda, he's probably working on that album, during the time, and so a lot of that's just him too. But if you just keep having these albums drop, and it's something, it's bringing back something old or something different than what's happening.
Absolutely.
It's just getting people more and more open to that idea. And I just feel like I've been seeing more from just even Redman and Method Man, you know what I mean? Those were two dudes that were doing a lot of stuff together at one point, and I feel like I'm seeing them like crazy now, and they're doing a lot of new stuff. So I just think it's really cool, because like you had, like I appreciated some 808 beats, because I associate 808 beats back in the day with like kind of like Southern stuff, which
it's all the South.
Yeah.
808 is the South.
Yeah.
Early hip hop. Let's know this too, though.
Yeah.
Early hip hop for everywhere, but then the South kind of embraced 808 and kind of made it its own as far as when it established its own sound. All right, my bad. I just say I let people because people talk about 808. I'm like, wait a minute, 808 was popping way before now, and it was even popping before the South. So, Anyway, please continue.
Oh yeah, Two Live Crew.
That's a whole nother sound, bro. I mean, it's the South, but it's the Miami-based sound. But
yeah, the Miami-based sound, and that's funny, man. I'm gonna get into that too, because I've been listening to a lot of stuff from Miami, bro. So
nice.
So it's interesting. But yeah, I just think it's cool because if you can have productions from both styles, because I definitely heard some beats, growing up that were 808, and it wasn't like I didn't like, at least me, I wasn't separating things back then, because you didn't hear so much 808, you know what I mean? And trap wasn't necessarily quite a thing yet, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
It wasn't like a household name yet. So like you're just like, oh, this beat's got an 808, that you know. So I appreciated both, but you know, I definitely was drawn to the break, the boom bap style beats.
Likewise.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, likewise, man.
So
it's kind of funny though. I always like to make this point too. I tell people, if you really think about it, the boom bap sound, as far as like jazz samples and stuff, it kind of came from the South though, right? Because the people who were the foundations of most hip hop drumming, Clyde Stubblefield, who was a James Brown drummer, Jabbo Starks, and one more. Is it Clyde Stubblefield, Jabbo Starks? And I'll remember in a second. But they were all from the South. Those two were people who drummed for James Brown. Well, Idris Muhammad was also another one, but it's one more. And he's the dude who mastered a lot for the Beatles. But I'm just saying,
bro, this is some history right here. That's
bro,
dope.
Because man, I came up with this stuff, man. I came up with it. So that's why boom bap appealed so much to me, because I listen to so much stuff like that. I listen to a lot of soul and funk and jazz and acid jazz. So boom bap just was like, it was like a natural progression for me. Because I'm hearing the stuff I'm used to hearing, but now they're looping it. You know what I'm saying? Now they're adding extra breaks to it. So I'm just like, it went from jazz, you know, acid jazz, you know, something like Freddie Hubbard or my man, I'm trying to think of another. My two favorite trumpeters, Freddie Hubbard and I'll remember in a second. But nonetheless, it went from this thing that I love listening to, and then they took it and made it into my music, because Freddie Hubbard and all that was my father exposed me to it. But when people started sampling it and looping it and putting breaks behind it, then that became like, for me, my music. I mean, his music too, but I'm saying our generation. But I'm saying between me and my dad, acid jazz is more his, hip hop is, that's, you know, I joke around and say a break is the cadence I live my life to. You know what I'm saying? So like, for me, it was a natural progression for me as far as the boom bap sound. But if you think about it, kind of came from down south, you know.
That is interesting, because I mean, you talk about drum samples. That, I mean, pretty much every single James Brown, you know, break has been sampled and used in the hip hop track over and over and over again.
They laid the foundation. I mean, there's other people that came after that, but everybody knows that the fundamental breaks came from, was it, how should I get, Clyde Stubblefield, Jabbo Starks. Bernard, I always forget his name. I'll remember it in a little bit. I'll have all three before we're done. But yeah, I mean, it pretty much was a sound that so much jazz, so much funk came from down south. I mean, look at labels like Stax, you know what I'm saying? And look at it was one more label I was thinking, man, I'm not remembering anything today.
Well, you got CTI.
Thank you.
That's a huge one, you know what I mean? That was like 70s.
Yes.
So, you know, and then also Blue Note.
Yeah.
And I think this is what I remember reading, this is some time ago, but I'm pretty sure Madlib has he has use of all Blue Note.
Yeah, I thought he had the rights to all the Blue Note stuff.
Yeah, so he can like sample and use anything he wants from the Blue Note catalog, which is insane to me. But if anybody should have that, it should be Madlib.
Agreed, because he's a freaking genius.
That guy's a genius.
But dude, I want to say this back to Luke's initial point that was a catalyst for all this, and that's that Griselda kind of was a second coming. They kind of came out and they were like, okay. And the funny thing about them is that they weren't like, we ain't doing this. They just came out and were like, this is what we're doing. And we're sticking to what we do, and we're just doing it. And people just were like, okay, their consistency, the fact that they're brave enough to basically be this amid all this, you know, amid all this quote unquote trap sound and stuff. They were like, and it wasn't like they were denying or anything. They just were like, just doing what they do. Like, okay, yeah, you know, all right, cool. We're Griselda, here we go. And next thing you know, everyone's just, you couldn't help but feel them, because the artistic creativity was there, the talent was definitely there, and still is, you know what I'm saying? The hard work, everything that was necessary and fundamental to make them a success story and just successful period was there. And on top of it, like I said, the other thing it did was they opened up a new door of kind of making Buffalo a play, like, you know, people didn't know Buffalo as much, but when Griselda came out, they were like, yo, you're gonna know Buffalo. So they just brought all this stuff back and opened the door for, like what he said. Now artists, Red Meth, everybody else is like, it's okay to do this kind of music again. So now everyone's kind of coming back out, and you're seeing just nothing but super dope stuff coming out.
And that's what's cool, because it's like, you know, with the age that Griselda's at, they're connected to that generation, you know what I mean?
Man.
So it's like, but you know, they're still like current. And you have to give a shout out to, I mean, the music in itself stands alone, But I think, and you know, I'm sure Conway and you know Benny have a lot to say about you know some of the artwork too. But dude, I think a lot of the genius from West Side Gun and his branding and just his overall like creative outlook and how he like you know will get certain people to do the artwork. And dude, I mean, it's just it just adds so much. I mean, their branding is insane.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
You know,
it's just subtle. Like you almost like, I mean, the cover of Griselda, bro. But then you look into like the history, like if you didn't know, like you know what I mean. And it's just like it's got all these layers to it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, bro, it's just I don't know. I think they're one step ahead of everybody. They're like, oh, that's cool now, but look at
next level.
This is what's cool in a year from now. We already know
next
it.
Level,
we
bro.
got it, bro.
You know. Man, I mean, it's so much. We could almost do just an entire episode on Griselda. But I'm like, you know, I look at it like this, man. Just speaking upon the West Side Gun thing, bro. Mm-hmm. That guy is more than a man of many hats. The dude's an ill lyricist. He dropped mix after mix. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He's into the fashion thing. I mean, he's got his hands in so many. The cool thing about him is he's got his hands in like 12 pots. But he's successfully manning like 12 pots, no problem. You're like, he's doing that and this and that and this and that, and it's all good.
It's all him too. It's like his vision. Dude. That's what I love. Like everything them, it just like it's like what they want to do. You know what I mean?
True. And he's repping his home on top of that. It's just so, like you said, the layers. It's just like another good thing after another and another. It's just like, man, mm-hmm. It's just they're doing everything exactly the way that they should, if you ask me. You know what I'm saying? And then, like you said, everybody's taking notice. You got Static Selector running in and do stuff with him, who's one of the illest DJs and producers, right? Yeah. Alchemist, you know what I'm saying? Primo. I mean, it's
that's
just
another
like,
producer I feel like I've been seeing a lot, Static Selector. I've been seeing him on a lot more stuff recently.
Ill. He's ill, man.
Maybe just because I'm paying attention more, you know, but I've been hearing his name more. So,
bro, I got something I just thought about.
Yeah.
And it speaks more to your point. And I'm not saying this in a negative way, but it just speaks to even more to what you're saying about Griselda basically being a pivotal shift. Think about it, a couple years back, Pro Era dropped. Mm-hmm. Joey Badass and them, and they're dope, man. Pro Era they're a dope clique. But it's funny how this whole clique of people still didn't do what these 3-4 cats did. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then from an area that was unknown, so they just kind of burst on the scene in a sense. To a lot of people who didn't even know who they were, and they're just like talent, creativity, you know, prolific, consistency, you know. Mm-hmm. Now, again, in contrast to Pro Era, you saw Joey Badass was a dope lyricist who was coming out doing a lot of the trap stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And he was a breath of fresh air. But if you watch, you see that's, you know, he kind of started. He was young though, like 18. So he's kind of grown up, you know, before a lot of the hip hop community's eyes, and he's still super dope. I ain't taking nothing away from him, but you know, a lot of things happen in Pro Era.
You know what I mean? And he's completely like, I don't like to say relevant, but like, I mean, his name is well held, like, cause I used to do like type beats. When I was posting type beats. Yeah. So you can kind of know what artists, you know, people are looking for, what people want to like, what kind of beats they want, who they kind of want to sound like. Uh-huh. And like Joey Badass beats were pretty hot still, you know what I mean? So I mean, like that dude's definitely got staying power, you know what I mean? But I think Griselda, what they did is they got their opportunity and they were ready. They're like, all right, boom, boom. They put out so many albums. I mean, like,
well put, yeah.
Each dude put out 3 or 4 albums in a year, I think. You know, I know West Side Gun. He put Pray for Paris. He had I'm getting mixed up probably between 20 and 2021 because they've had so many albums.
Yeah, they've dropped a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And
then he dropped a joint with Doom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't forget that. That was ill.
Bro, and he's doing something with Travis Scott. So, I mean, that's the thing, too. It's like, there you got 2 different worlds, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
2 completely different worlds. And to me, like, Travis Scott is his own world. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
You know what I mean? I don't listen to Travis Scott all the time, but that guy is a visionary and he's created almost his own, like, world.
Agreed, because he's not quite trap. He's just... He's all over the place, from a creativity standpoint. I think.
I don't even think like he's been asked, and he doesn't even like. He considers his music just kind of like his own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Nope, I agree.
But yeah, so you get that kind of stuff. You know, I'd say one thing too. I think early trap or just early computer beats, because for me, what became trap was computer beats.
Okay.
You know, because I mean, I was pretty active at the time, like producing and working with people like low level. You know what I mean? Like we weren't like well known, but we were doing shows. We were making music, and we were aware of like the tools that people were using to make beats. And I had friends that were using MPCs. I had friends that were starting to use Pro Tools or Fruity Loops. And then I was kind of in my own little world. I had like some samplers, like some Boss samplers, and then I had like a sequencing Yamaha keyboard, you know, that could have 16 tracks. So people had like all different production styles.
Yeah.
But it was kind of seeing like the sample production always had that soul, and it had more emotion and feeling to it back then to
The
almost everybody I was
musicality.
around.
Because of the musicality. I think.
Because they were sampling, right? So you're sampling from these high quality recordings,
Facts.
these analog recordings that have already been mixed by the best engineers.
Well put.
You know what I mean?
man.
Plus
Yep.
it's coming off vinyl, so it's got this warm sound. So you already, so all these like filters and things you're trying to create on the computer, it's just naturally in there because it's this organic sound. You know what I mean?
Most definitely.
And then you just put some sample drum breaks that are off of a record too. So you already have like, it's almost like as long as you get the levels right from your samples, you have like this pro mixed, you know what I mean? Your loop might even have the bass line in it. So your melody and bass line might be in the sample.
True.
And then you just have a drum break.
True.
Some beats are like a drum loop and then just like a melody that you might have the bass mixed in with it, you know, sometimes.
Yep.
So to me, that was like early on, like you wanted those kind of beats because they just had so much more feeling to them. And the early computer beats that like the people I was hearing, you know what I mean? Like it just sounded so like, the other thing too is like, I think people were quantizing their beats. So they were putting like on a DAW, like a production computer, you've got all these little bars laid out this way. And as you go, you get along the song here from the beginning to the end. And you can break it into like, 30-second parts in a bar, like 4, and you can do all these different things. So you can go in and you can put the kick right at the beginning of the beat, right?
Okay.
Boom, and then put
Yep.
the snare right where it would be, but it's like perfectly locked in. Like you put
Right.
it right into that little box, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, so it's almost robotic. It's like, and when you sample a breakbeat, it's being played by someone that's playing like with feeling and emotion. And if you look at that drum loop, when it's laid out on a DAW, like you just sample like a live drum break,
Yep.
that snare is not going to hit exactly where it would be if you had it quantized.
But you know why that is? Because it's analog.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I tell you real quick.
But
I don't
also
wanna-
it adds flow to it, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you
The
can feel
never-ending
like it.
debate.
Man, it's crazy, man. That kick comes in just a little bit early if it's not quantized, or a little bit late, and the snare a little bit late or a little early, depending on the flow of the song.
Yep.
It gives so much flow and vibe to the
Dude, I'm
track.
telling you, because analog is so imperfect. Analog, not only is it imperfect, it's real.
Yeah.
Analog is. That's what I tell people, man. I debate. I'm like a tech nerd. I don't know production like Luke does, but I do know technology and programming and all that stuff. And it's like I tell people, it's one thing to have an actual sound, like a sound, but then it's another thing to actually sample a sound. And that's where a lot of debate. Me and this guy we debate for hours, man. We be working on equipment. It's because he was a digital guy and I was an analog guy, and I still am. But I've come since to appreciate a lot of what you can do. Yeah, just sound in general. Even when we talked about guitar sounds, like FET amps versus tube amps. That's a big one with me. I debate with a lot of guitar guys about that. But that's another conversation. But nonetheless, we would debate, and he'd be like, "Oh, you like analog because of the distortion and noise." And I'm like, "Well, yes and no, because
it's used right."
Well, but nothing. It's analog is an actual sound. There's nothing perfect about actual sound. It's gonna have every component. It's gonna have every single harmonic that actual sound that was sampled has. But when you sample a sound, you're gonna miss some components. Now, here's the caveat. You have what is called sampling rate. So you take an analog signal, which is going to look like a sine wave, like a sideways S, right? And you say, for this sound that's 60 seconds, you're going to sample it 1,000 times. So you almost get the whole sound, right? So you barely miss anything. And what happens is, for the untrained ear, over time, you get used to that sampled sound, and you think that's the whole sound. It's repeatable, and it's adjustable, but it's still a sampled sound. But if you didn't grow up listening to warm analog sound, when you're gonna think that's a good sound, and it's not a bad sound, because digital quality sound is good. It doesn't distort. It doesn't degrade, because the medium is not a worn down MIDI, and it's reading it off computer memory or something like that.
Yeah.
But analog sound, like when a needle hits a record over time, the record's wear. We both know that, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still the actual sound that was put on that record. So, sampled sound versus actual sound. To a trained ear, you're gonna. I believe, and this is where me and Dude would be back and forth. You can't tell the difference, and he'd be like, they've got it down to the filter. I'm like, I don't believe that, but I do think, this is just my opinion, I do think that if you've heard enough analog sound, like let's say you grew up around live instruments and you played orchestra or something like that, you just grew up around a lot of live music, you can hear the difference between, to a degree, warm analog sound and a digital sampled sound. I mean, it makes a difference.
Oh,
I think
100,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, I can understand if you're not sampling how you might not notice, but I mean, I've done a variety of things, man. Like back in the day, you'd always sample off records, but then I would also sample stuff off TV and movies. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's that's like Doom does.
Yeah. So I mean, all different things, and part of the cool part of it was like you're getting this filter in a sense, right? Yeah. Whatever filter that it was recorded in, you're getting it, and it's a subtle thing. It's like maybe you can consider it almost like a low end vibration. Like it's there and you don't know it, but if your ear's trained to hear it, that subtle difference makes a huge difference.
It does.
It
does.
Because I've also sampled stuff off CD, but it sounds digital. It doesn't sound like a record.
Because it's a sampled. That sound has been sampled and digitized. It's not the same. Again, whenever you make a noise, every component of that sound is there. You have the main noise, but then also with that you have what are called harmonics, which are spurious waves and spurious sounds and spurious frequencies that are going to exist. So when you sample something off a record, you get that sound and all the other harmonics, spurious frequencies that go along with it, and that's what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And
now I think you got people that are like, some people put sample production in with some trap beats, some 808.
And I kind of like that.
I do too.
Yeah, it's pretty dope, man. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say kind of. I do like it in a lot of cases.
And the thing I'll say too about like trap and 808 is I think early on, like boom bap, people weren't like, oh, we got to do this song in the key of G or A minor. You know what I mean?
Very, very.
I don't even think that was probably for most. Like hip hop was like, that loop sounds dope. Doesn't matter what key it's in.
Dude, yes.
You know what I mean? Necessarily. Yes. You put a drum break over it and then we're just going to rhyme over it.
Yes, man.
So now it's like, man, that 808 has to be in key with the melody or it sounds horrible.
Very, very good.
It doesn't sound good.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And the thing is there's certain keys you can do tracks in that will give you a certain emotion, bro. Like, I'm not even kidding. Dude. Like, I'm not saying I know how to write a hit song, but check this out. Like, you look at like the number one song that's out there, right? Like whatever, even if you want to talk pop music, you can type in, I don't know, give me an artist. What an artist, like mainstream.
We said Drake earlier.
Okay, we'll say Drake.
Yeah.
So you can type in whatever Drake song that's happening, right? Yeah. And you type in Drake, that song, Tune Bat. There's this website called Tune Bat. And what it'll do is it'll give you the BPM from that song, the key that song is in, the length, which isn't necessarily as important, but this is just one part of this, right? So you're like, okay, so the BPM, because really like the rhythm of a song, the tempo of a song is a huge part.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Because it's
it
whole
evokes
different
emotion, bro.
It evokes emotion. Yeah. So right there, you're like, okay, so I know the BPM and I know the key. So, and then what you can do also, if you really want to get into it to see how they wrote a hit song, you type in the lyrics, all right? And you can look like, oh man. So he did a 8-bar chorus, and then he went into a 4-bar verse, and then he repeated the 8-bar chorus, and then there was like this breakdown, and then he went into like this crazy 16-bar verse, and then it ended with an 8-bar chorus. And if you pay attention to the layout of songs, a lot of that's why we like them. You know what I mean? And back in boom bap, it was like early hip hop, which I appreciate, and it's still the format that I typically write in. Right. It's like, all right, you got your 16. All right, cool. 4 8-bar chorus. You know what I mean? 4 8-bar chorus. Yeah. 16-bar verse. Maybe we'll do a 4 and 4 back and forth, or an 8 and 8. But for the most part, it was like you just showed up with a 16-bar verse, and then like everybody did a 16, and you had 3 people on a track, and the song was like 5.5 minutes long.
Facts.
And now it's like, you know, I've been studying formats, you know what I mean? And songs are like 2.5 minutes long.
Exactly.
That's probably the
People
average.
don't
It's
peep
3.5
game on
to
that,
2.
man. Yep.
You know what I mean?
People don't peep game. Man, bro, you're dropping some heat right now, bro. And that's like what we talked about earlier, though, man. Because there's a formula. When you look at pop music, it's a formula for record sales. But nonetheless, I can, like someone like me, I'm a snob. I'm like, I don't like, you know. But at the same time, it sells and it works. It appeals to more people. I can argue with it all day about whether it's artistically creative or whether it's even dope, but it sells and it appeals to a lot of people. Like, I'm kind of a snob in a sense that, again, that I'm like, okay, hip hop should be this and punk should be, you know, this, and right. But at the same time, though, you gotta give it up to a lot of these entities and people, even producers who are recognizing this, because they recognize if you add a formula to how you do your music, you're gonna appeal to more people. So you can shop a trap track to, you know, 28 million people as opposed to, you know, a 6-second sample track with a loop in it to 10,000 people, right? So I mean, that's just the reality of how it goes, man. You know, I mean.
Yeah, and I have to say too, another interesting thing about the sample, you know, production style, kind of boom bap production style versus the more trap style is the trap style doesn't usually tend to have as many samples in it, you know. So the fact is that a lot of those early beats, a lot of producers potentially aren't getting any royalties off of that, because if that thing hits mainstream, the record companies aren't just gonna, you know, be like, oh, you produced this, right? They're going to be like, no, where did the original sounds come from? Because we don't want to get sued.
Yep.
So they're going to find out where the original sounds come from. And in some cases, you'll have people be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. You flipped that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, I'll take my little percentage, because obviously.
Steely Dan, Bob James.
Yeah.
Just like 2 examples.
2 cool people right there. You know what I mean? And like, supposedly, like, Trent Reznor's pretty cool about samples too.
I could see him being cool about that.
Yeah, because people have sampled his stuff. And
but
he's
just a creator though. So.
Yeah. But then you got like, I was watching this interview on Producer Grind, and I think I kind of mentioned this like we had another episode, but it kind of applies here too. And Carlo Gottweens was saying he produced this beat, and Jay-Z was like, I'm going to use this, right? And then he'd sampled this like horror movie from Japan. And he's like, oh man, you know, nobody's going to know what this is. But they're like, oh, we need to know where you got the sample from. They got in touch with the people in Japan that made the movie. And they're like, oh, you used the whole sample? So they came in and they took everything. So he got initially paid, you know, for here's the beat. But he didn't get like, I don't think he got anything afterwards, right? So like every stream, you know, he gets production credit. He, you know, shook a lot of hands. He's on a Jay-Z album.
Of course.
But he's not getting any of those royalties.
Right, kicking himself with every stream.
Right. They don't even give him like the hi-hats and the snare, you know what I mean, or whatever. It's like,
it's crazy, dude, how they've kind of divided and subdivided and subdivided music like that. It's like, again, it's another thing that they've quantified, you know, brought it down, and then record companies have done a lot of this. But it's cool though now to see independent producers and artists getting in on that too, because now again the record companies are not doing this. You know, they don't have like a broad, you know, chokehold on the game. It's like everyone's like, man, move, I can do this. So I kind of figured it out. But you made a point a couple minutes ago I wanted to touch upon too. That's very, very pertinent. Before when it was like a lot of MPC, you know, sample based stuff back in the days, you got a 16, you just kind of sounds good, you rhyme on it. You see, it's what's happening is sampling, and even a lot of production is starting to come around more to where it's becoming more and more like people are like, oh, that's not music. Well, actually, it is. You see people like, and that's one thing I think trap is kind of good for. It's making it so that you have more artists that are able to make their own music and they can get full royalties for it. They're creating more, even though the sound might not be what I prefer necessarily, and I do like some of the quote unquote trap stuff, but overall, it's not what I generally gravitate toward. But I'm gonna give credit where it's due. I mean, you look at that, man. It's opening doors in that regard, right?
Yeah, because at this point, bro, I mean, like, it's hard to go dig up a piece of vinyl that hasn't been completely gone through. You know what I mean? So, like, I felt like in the 90s you could still do that. I mean, it was still, like, kind of getting slim, like, oh, this, like, oh, they sampled that. You know, you could still use it, but you're like, oh, yeah, it's been used, you know?
Yeah.
And now it's like, there's more tools and the technology is better.
And we're grateful for that.
Yeah. But this is crazy too, man. This is like a whole new game for producers. This is like a huge thing, which I don't think was as huge in the past. Is now people are just creating loops. So you got producers like, oh, I made a melody, and they're sending out these packs to all these different producers, and you know, their stuff's getting used potentially in hundreds of different beats.
Most
right?
definitely, yeah.
And then if that stuff gets placed, this producer who just sent off a melody is going to get part of that. You know, they're going to get their royalties from that. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, you really want to get in tune with the game with your music, because if you are doing it and you're active, there's definitely, man, it's the time for independent musician. You know what I mean?
Dude, exactly. I mean, back to the initial point. After all this, look, Griselda, they did that very thing.
Yeah, because they're not dependent on Shady Records no more.
Well, they already split basically.
Yeah, I mean,
they mobbed out of there.
I think it was pretty clear that was going to happen, bro. And listen, I bet you anything Eminem knew that too. He's like, all right, dude, let me just put you guys on, and I know you're not going to stay here. You don't even really need me.
They're too dope to be hanging out.
But maybe this will give just a little bump.
Exactly.
Maybe a little bump.
And I can appreciate that.
And I bet you. I mean, I'm not a huge Eminem fan. I never really was. I got a lot of respect for the dude, you know, in a lot of different ways. I do. And I will say, Sound Bombing was my favorite M stuff.
Dude, he does not suck. Let's just get. Even with his new stuff, I don't like it a lot, but I will never say that he's not a good artist.
Dude, that dude's hella talented. Yeah.
So anyway, what were you saying?
But what I'm saying though is, I could just see him almost doing it for the culture, being like, dude, these Griselda dudes are dope. You know, they're gonna do their own thing, but if I put them on Shady and we put an album, at least gets the people over here that don't know about him yet, maybe, and then boom, they're going to be off. And he doesn't care. He's got plenty of money, right? He doesn't care that, you know, Griselda. He's probably stoked for them, I would imagine. You know what I mean?
Of course, man.
At least that's the way I look at it.
No, I think you're spot on with that, bro. I mean, it's just, man, because I mean, when I saw it, I'm like, nah, you know, because and it's not like a good or bad thing. It's just the nature of things. When you have an entity like Griselda, you cannot hold an entity like that back. They will continue doing what they do, and you're not gonna tell them no either, because they're such a well of creativity. You know what I'm saying? And such a well of talent that they're like, you know what, we know we're dope. So if you don't want to do what or go along with what we're doing, no problem. We ain't even mad. We'll get the support and we'll figure it out. And they've done just that. And it's like now they're comfortable. And again, that's another way where they open up doors. I mean, they're opening doors for all kinds of other musicians, and even collabing with people who don't even have their sound, like Conway rapping over trap beats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
they're
like
doing it. Yeah, I mean, there's
Benny
tracks out there. Benny too. I haven't heard West Side Gun on a trap beat.
I haven't either. But I'm pretty sure if he's teaming up with Travis Scott, it's gonna be something interesting coming out of that. You know
I can't wait to hear that, bro. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, but dude, like you said, man, I mean, they're just, man, you know, I'm not, you know, because this is gonna be like trap, you know, as opposed to boom bap type thing. But I mean, I think we covered a number of different things. But I think that, you know, Griselda as a catalyst of the whole conversation is, I mean, like I always say, it can't be overstated, man. I mean, it's just like they've done so many things that are milestones and significant, you know, as of late in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then I like the way also too you touched upon the whole thing, getting to the whole boom bap versus trap, or boom bap and trap thing, is some of the points as far as the good things that have come from the trap sound. It can't be denied. Even for someone that's like, I don't like that sound, you can still appreciate the fact that artists are getting more royalties. You can still appreciate the fact that artists are making their own melodies and loops and stuff and selling them. You can appreciate a lot of things that have come out of that. You can appreciate the fact that people are making independent music. You can appreciate the fact, real quick, that they're doing what labels were doing. What were you gonna say, bro? Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I think there's gonna be just some really interesting, like, different production coming out, because, like, I've been watching interviews with, like, if you're into the producer world, you pay attention to producers. I mean, you probably heard of Cash Money AP. I don't know if you've heard of him. I don't think so, no. So this dude just blew up. Like, he was uploading a beat a day to YouTube back in like 2012. And this is early on when people were selling beats like on ClickFunnels and stuff. And this guy he blew up. He was like, I forget where he was. I think he grew up somewhere in like the Bahamas. So he was just kind of somewhere pretty remote. You know what I mean? Yeah, like Bahamas isn't exactly known for its dope hip hop. Yeah, but sound. He had the internet. He even talked about how, like,
his version of FL I think wasn't that great, and his internet speed, and it would take like a long time to upload a video, but this guy just kept on uploading videos and created a consistent fan base. And these are definitely trap style beats, you know, like a melody, the hi-hat, you know, the quick like percussion with the like the clap or the rim shot, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And but you know, I mean, they're dope, and he created, like, he was kind of somewhat the originator of a lot of the thumbnails too that you'll see for beats. Like, he was using a lot of the Simpson logos, you know, just old Simpson pictures, and like altering it so like Bart looks different or whatever, you know what I mean? So like he was really like he's huge right now. I mean, as far as producing, he's had some huge credits. I mean, like Polo G, and just to name one, you know, but he's working with like pretty much everybody. But he was being interviewed, and he was talking about how he actually likes boom bap, and he likes boom bap beats, and he was talking about how he wants to make almost like a new style of boom bap beats, but using trap sounds. So the sounds that you would typically use, I mean, because can you imagine like the boom, boom, you know, like, so like the 808s aren't laid out where they're like, you know, like, you know, like stuttered or like repeated, or the different patterns, because the patterns are even different with the way the 808s hit than like a typical like drum break would hit.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if he's talking about having the 808s hit the way a drum break would hit, you know, and having the 808 instead of a kick from a drum and stuff like that, and then maybe losing like the fast patterns of the, you know, the hi-hats and stuff. I don't know, but I think that the door is open now. It really is like about a new sound, and you can kind of do whatever you want as long as it's dope.
Nah, I mean, but that's kind of tantamount to what art is, though.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's what art is. So, man, I was gonna say something else. Oh, I gotta touch upon one more artist. And I know anybody on the internet, especially YouTube, knows exactly who this dude is. But he's actually taken from a lot of what we're saying trap brought out, but he's doing it with boom bap, and that's my man Cooking Soul. He is making the internet his bitch. I don't know other way to phrase it, but he is dropping some of the illest shit I have ever seen, and I'm cursing, yes. This dude sound, I'm like, dude, how are you? You can't be this good, but he is, you know. And he's working with
out more, bro.
He's working with Larry June. You know, he's working with all kinds of artists, man. He worked with Doom. He did the Doom Christmas. This dude is utilizing the internet literally as his bitch. And if you want to say his bitch, forget it. He's utilizing the internet in every which way he can possibly do it. And he has got such an ill following, and he has got such an ill sound. He's got drum kits. He's got everything. This dude, and he's even bringing anime into a lot of it. He'll do a beat, or he'll produce something, and then he'll throw anime in it. And the thing about it is he'll sync up the anime with his music.
Damn, bro, this sounds like a guy I was going to mention too.
Man, bro.
Yeah.
Go, what were you about to say?
I was going to say almost exact same description, right? Is this dude Ryan Celsius? I know he said you wanted to
producer is he though, bro?
Man, it's definitely like, it's just dope, man.
Okay.
The drums slap. That's the best way I can do it. It's not trap. It definitely sounds more like sample based.
Okay.
It has that warm analog feel to it.
Man, I'm all for that.
But the way some of the, you know, there'll be some hard hitting like 808s in there, but they sound like breaks. They sound like break beats. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I mean, it's pretty epic, bro. Like, I would just say his stuff like just sounds pretty epic. You know, like the way it builds and changes. It's mostly instrumental, but then he just got a write up in Rolling Stone. But this guy was syncing his music with like anime, old 80s commercials, just random old stuff, right?
Man, I love it.
And I guess he has these machines, like my buddy was kind of showing me, I need to look into him more, but he's kind of like in real time warp the picture in a sense, you know what I mean? So he's kind of like mixing the video with the music.
Okay.
I mean, it's totally like this, you can't stop but watch it, you know what I mean?
Nice.
And I think this guy has like over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube at this point.
Okay.
And he's just a producer. There's not even a picture of him. You know what I mean? I think he has like Ned Flanders for his profile picture.
Nice.
And he actually got busted because of he got demonetized on his YouTube.
Uh-oh.
And you know, people were thinking, oh, it's probably copyright, right? Because all his videos have commercials. I mean, all this stuff. You know what I mean? And it's a pretty interesting thing. We should do an episode about copyright and just all the stuff that gets used. But
I'm down, man.
But he ended up getting demonetized, and it was because they couldn't tell what his content was about. Because he would put like trapping in Japan, because he would have like these trap beats and like just kind of like that was the theme. But he ended up not getting taken down for copyright. It was just because they didn't know how to run ads on his stuff, and people couldn't find his videos for a minute there.
Wow.
So
It's funny what happens. See, that's the thing that's funny about with art, man. Is like you can't. I mean, I guess that's a bit of a conundrum, you know. Now we're kind of going off on a quick tangent, but might as well. In this age where everything is literally quantified, even down to like computers and everything's got a number, everything's got a category, everything's got a space, you know what I'm saying, in a quote unquote matrix, you know. But art kind of, you know, it's analogous to being off the metronome, right?
Yeah,
Back in the days, people who are off the metronome, like what's my man, Thelonious Monk, right? And a lot of the early jazz artists they're like, you can't do this, but they're off the metronome. So you know, even in this time where then we can basically put everything in a box, you have something like that.
Yeah,
that's pretty far out, man. That he does something like that.
Yeah, and it's dope. He's just got this huge following. He has like I think 3 YouTube channels where they have like 24/7 music being played.
Wow, man.
And he has people operating for it, and he just grabs other producers that are kind of similar and doing the same thing. So
wow.
It's cool. But yeah, Cooking Soul, Ryan Celsius. You want to check out some cool YouTube videos, man. Cool production.
Absolutely. Hey, man, look, before we go, we definitely, we said we'd do another Portland hip hop one, and we're
going to do that.
So we just had to touch upon this, man. We might even talk more about this because there's so much more we can go into. It's like, as far as the discernible differences and things that we notice as far as differences between like the quote unquote boom bap and the quote unquote trap sound, or even the whole followings and you know, just everything that comes with both of those. But this is pretty good. But yeah, definitely shouting out Griselda again as well.
No doubt.
So.
But yeah, that Portland episode, we're going to get into that, man, because, you know, I was talking to a friend and they were doing like a paid piece up on a wall, you know, like, you know, just
graffiti.
But you know, they're getting paid. It was all this nice custom stuff. That's huge right now, bro. Like, it's crazy, the commissions the people I know that are getting right now. 10, 20 grand to do these commissions. Oh my gosh.
Dude, I wrote to people graffiti is art.
Yeah. But they were out there doing this, and these dudes saw them work, and they're like, oh, we're going to film a hip-hop video. So they started filming a hip-hop video there, and he started talking. I was like, he was just telling me about all the dudes that were there that were doing music, and he talked to him. I was like, man, we really got to dig into Portland, because Portland's got like, it's a lot of, there's a lot of dimensions to Portland hip-hop, bro. That's what I'm realizing.
I couldn't have said it any better.
I dig, and like, I'm pretty stoked on it, man. Like just because you can kind of know about it a little bit more now because YouTube. I mean, pretty much everybody's on there. So I think we're gonna really spend a little bit of time and dig into this so that we can really do like a dope episode on Portland and give the dues where they should be. You know?
Nah, most definitely. I just thought about this Portland. I also found out about the other day, Wavy Water. I'm like, okay, you heard of him before?
No.
All right, yeah. So we're definitely gonna touch upon Cool Nuts. You know, and some of the new dope cats coming out of Portland, my man Wavy Water, you know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, this is different, this is dope, you know? So, yeah, we're going to be bringing a Portland one to you soon.
Yeah.
So, word, man, this is dope, man.
Dope,
you know what I'm saying? I dug this. Thanks for the education on the production stuff, man. It was just ill, man, when you look at the different dimensions and angles and dynamics that go into producing and music and
no doubt, man. And then just bringing it up too about like the drum breaks and just kind of almost being like, you know, that's actually kind of from the South too, because all those James Brown breaks. So yeah, man, it's interesting. So yeah, this is just one little snippet into the world of hip hop, I guess.
Most definitely.
History. So hope you appreciate it. You know, whatever it is, trap, boom bap, as long as it's dope.
Exactly, man. Just keep creating.
Yeah.
We'll do the same.
I live this game intent, no caution on the sentence. Repentance from the temporary part is one life's gonna